Hey everybody, Crafting Journey here, out for the walk with the puppies and the cat who's hiding underneath the car because it's too cold for him. Anyway, I've got part 3 of Casey's Nickelodeon's murders and an update, of course, on the Idaho student murder suspect. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, Crafting Journey here, that journey chick over on Instagram and on my second YouTube channel, The Leftovers. The link to that channel is down in the description. Welcome back to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily. Oh, I've got the paper towels here from last night when I was doing watercolor on Craft With Me Wednesday. Check out that video if you want to see some of the painting that I do. How are you? Yes, we have updates on the Idaho student murder. Who doesn't have updates on the defendant, Brian Kohlberger? Yeah, I laughed last night because during my live, there was somebody actually tracking the flight, like flight tracking the plane that Kohlberger was on leaving Pennsylvania going to Idaho. People are just obsessed with this case. But in any case, he's back in Idaho. So then I tuned into Court TV and Vinny Politano. That guy's crazy. But anyway, he's got boots on the ground and this woman in freezing cold weather in Idaho. Freezing. Like she was shivering in this big parka, fur parka, and she's like standing there waiting in the back of the courthouse. Of course, they bring him through the front of the courthouse, or not the courthouse, but the jail where they're going to house him. And so he gets there very late last night, so no chance for an appearance in front of a judge, or where he can be booked. He was probably booked, but no chance where he can see the probable cause affidavit, which we're all just dying to hear what that's going to be. So very likely today, the defendant, Brian Kohlberger, will appear in court in front of a judge for an arraignment where he will be shown the probable cause affidavit. He'll have an attorney. The attorneys are all bound by a gag order. They are not allowed to hold press conferences or anything like that. But we'll get to hear his plea. He'll enter his not guilty plea, and the legal process will continue. But like I said, they're under a gag order. None of the lawyers are allowed to talk. None of the parties are allowed to talk. It's all very, hush, hush, hush. But after this probable cause affidavit is unsealed, probably today, then it'll become public record and we'll all get to know what's in it. Yay! It'll be on every YouTube channel. Every YouTube channel, including mine, because I'm on the bandwagon, man. Okay, do you guys want to hear part 3 of Casey's Nickelodeon? I do. Yeah, what a crazy case. All right, let me show you that first. Like I said, I did watercolor painting last night. I've got diamonds everywhere here, good Lord. I'll show you my progress on my diamond painting. Yep. Okay. So this is the bottom part here. Look how cool this, I just blinged this thing out. What I did was I added in, instead of just regular acrylic diamonds, or sometimes they're resin. I don't know if they're acrylic or resin in this case, but it doesn't really matter. But what they'll do is you can order special drills or diamonds that have an iridescent coating on them that make them super, super shiny, which is what I've done here in the bottom part of this. Look at the dragon. I'll show you the whole thing. See? This is called the Dragon's Door. So it's pretty big. It goes up further. But so this dragon is going to be really blinged. And then the portion of the door going around, I'm going to do in gold. I've started some of it down in here, some of the gold. But yeah, you'll get to see that later on. Okay, let's put this back down. And we will continue with the Casey's Nickelodeon Murders. Now, if you didn't watch part 1 and part 2, please go back and watch so you don't miss a thing. And, you know, once you're all caught up down, you can watch part 3. I'll put the link to 1 and 2 here. I'll make a playlist. And you can just link to the playlist. How's that? So, Butch Casey, also, that was his nickname. His real name was Casimir Sukarovsky. He lived in South Florida, and he managed a bar called Casey's Nickelodeon. He goes home, he closes up the bar. It's an after hours club. So very, very early morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, he closes up and he invites 2 young women, 2 25-year-old women, who one was a fashion designer, the other one was a model. He invites them back to his home for drinks. Now, he's this blonde, shaggy blonde, suave guy, you know. They're not even there an hour. They're sitting around his dining room table. They're drinking wine, joking, laughing, and 2 intruders break in and terrorize them for 22 minutes, which is all caught on videotape because Butch Casey liked to videotape things going on in his house. This was before, this was 1994, before we all did surveillance, before the Ring cameras would photograph your kids sneaking in and out, that kind of thing. This was really early on, and the footage was kind of grainy. So the police, the Broward Sheriff's Office, they get the FBI and NASA to try to enhance the film, but it's still pretty grainy. Now, one of the victim's sisters, Sharon, her sister, who's followed the entire trial, they were very, very close sisters. She has said, I recognize my sister. I don't know how anybody that knows the defendant, Pablo Ibar, well, can't recognize this guy on the film and is saying it's not him. Yeah. So when I ended yesterday, we had a suspect. We had 2 suspects, Pablo Ibar and Seth Penalver, yes. They had just had trial number 1, which ended in a hung jury after the jury deliberated for 25 hours. This verdict came 3 years and 6 months after the date of the murders. So, what happens next? Yes, I'm going to tell you after I have some coffee. I need coffee. How cool is this shirt? I found it in the bottom of my drawer. I'm like, I don't remember. I remember getting this shirt. It's an Alice in Wonderland type steampunk type shirt. I never wore it. I don't know why. But I said, oh, let me put that on. I like it. Okay. So following this hung jury, they have to have new trials. The prosecution says, yep, I'm going to try him again. But he tries them separately. They split the trials. So they go against Seth. And they get, in 1998, okay, I'm trying to get this correct. So, yeah, in 1998 was the first hung jury verdict. So Seth gets his own trial, and he is convicted. Now, that was in 1999. He is convicted. So he appeals that conviction. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court, the Florida Supreme Court. And the Florida Supreme Court says, this evidence is so circumstantial and so scant, we're just going to throw this conviction out and order a new trial. So it goes back to trial. Now, by the time that appeal runs its course, The appeal is heard by the Supreme Court and ruled on in 2006, and the new trial occurs in 2012. Yeah, which is how many years after the murders? 18 years after the murders. Seth Penalver has spent 18 years of his life in jail maintaining his sentence. 6 of those years, you know, the conviction that he got in 1999, he got the death penalty. So 6 of those years he was on death row. But in this new trial that occurs in 2012, he is exonerated. He was interviewed, and he said, you know, when other peoples were ordering, you know, Twinkies and Ho-Hos in jail, I was ordering law books. And he would go through all of the evidence. And what he found in this evidence was a legal document that no one had ever seen before, a claim that they had never seen before. This document was, it was a memo that was typed up by the Broward Sheriff's Office. A gentleman named McGill had come in. He had walked into the Broward Sheriff's Office and said, I need to speak to the investigating officer. And he gave the name of the investigating officer, and they said, well, he's not on duty. You know, let me just take your information and I'll write it all up and I'll give it to him and he'll be in touch with you. Well, this guy claims that he was the person that drove the Butch Casey's Mercedes-Benz up to Palm Beach County, where it was found in Belle Glade, which is the middle of nowhere, burned. It was burning. It was on fire and it was burned out. They found this vehicle the day before the murders. So, well, the day before the murders were discovered. So the vehicle was taken, it's believed, you know, they committed, the 2 intruders took the Mercedes after they committed the murders. And one of the key witnesses was this neighbor who saw 2 men backing out of the driveway in that Mercedes. But now we've got this guy who's come in and said, I was the one that drove it all the way up to Palm Beach. Now, they're saying, well, who asked you to do that? Or why'd you do that? And he goes, well, my boss hired me to do that. They don't ask him any more questions. Who's the boss? You know, that's it. This person's she's just taking a message for the investigator. Then, so they try to get in touch with this guy. And they find out that he was killed the next day. He goes to this strip club, and someone in the strip club says, hey, can you step outside for a minute? And they shoot and kill him. Dead. So, and then the investigating officer, he died in 2012, I think. Or he dies sometime afterwards in a motorcycle accident where he turned accidentally in front of a Mercedes and he's hit and killed. What? Yeah. And the reason that's important, these 2 things are important, is because if Seth is innocent and Pablo Ibar is innocent, who killed these people? Who committed these murders? And one thing I didn't describe to you was Butch Casey, right up until the time of the murders, was being very... His mood was very dark, and he was foreshadowing his death. He told his son, he called his son, and he said, listen, if I should die, you know, you're going to be taken care of. I made sure that, you know, you're going to get everything. And he also had a 10-year-old daughter. People said that when he would talk to them, he would say, hey, am I a bad person? And he was very, very depressed, also because 2 weeks before the murders, his good friend, O.J. Simpson, is alleged to have murdered Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. So he's kind of depressed about that. And so the thought process is, if these 2 men are not Seth and Pablo Ibar, are they members of the mob? Was this a hit by the mob? None of this was ever investigated. Never. None of these things were ever pursued. Who who hired this guy to drive the Mercedes up there? Remember I had all these questions about how this Mercedes got all the way up there? Yeah. Who took it up there? How'd they get back? Yeah. So in any case, Seth has his new trial. The jury deliberates for 10 days and comes back not guilty. He's exonerated, so he goes free. And one of the main witnesses in this case was John Clemesco. John Clemesco was the roommate who identified Seth to begin with, and he said Seth Pentlover, not Seth Penalver, Pentlover. And what the Seth's attorney was able to do was he asked the lead prosecutor, or the lead investigator, while as part of the prosecution's case in chief, they put this investigator on several times, which is the usual routine with a lead investigator, because you want to tell your story in a chronological order. So you bring that investigator on several times. So each time he was on the stand, the defense attorney would ask him, hey, did you ever pay a reward in this case for tips? And he's like, no, crime watch reward, no, we never paid a reward. So prosecution closes their case. The defense calls the lead investigator to the stand and says, remember I asked you that, did you ever pay a reward? Well, how about this guy who, and he shows him where he paid him $1,000 reward. You authorized the payment of a $1,000 reward to John Clemesco for naming Seth Pentlover, didn't you? Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot it. No, I made a mistake. Yeah, I paid that. And it was, Pentlover had just been out of jail for a month when these murders occurred. He was a drug addict, totally not reliable crack addict. And now it's been proven that, maybe did he say all these things in exchange for a reward? You give up your roommates and get $1,000. That could go a long way in 1994. So very unreliable witness. And that's one of the reasons Seth, they came back with not guilty. The other one was there was just no physical evidence against Seth. No DNA, no hair, no fibers, no footprints, fingerprints, nothing against Seth Penalver. So, not guilty. Okay, I need more coffee. Because now we still got to talk about the retrial of Pablo Ibar. Now, meanwhile, Pablo Ibar has become this huge icon in Spain because his father is a famous highlight player. And at the time of these murders, Pablo Ibar was also training to be a highlight player. He was just getting ready to make his debut. Unfortunately, during training, he gets hit in the head, and his father says, I think you need to take a little time off. He goes down to South Florida to take a break in his highlight training. And this is just an aside. If you have never seen highlight, it is fascinating sport. Yeah, I loved it. I loved watching it and betting on it as well. So anyway, he's, recovering from this head injury when he's arrested for these murders. So the first trial, hung jury. Now the trials are split. I've told you about Seth becoming not guilty. Pablo is tried again. They get a guilty verdict, and that's in 98 or 99. They get a guilty verdict, death penalty, and he also takes his case to the Supreme Court, who also reviewed the evidence and said it's insufficient. This needs to go back to trial. They threw out the conviction, goes back to trial. One of the reasons they threw out the conviction was Pablo was claiming that he had the insufficient assistance of counsel. His lawyer, who by the time the Supreme Court hears this, it's 2016. Meanwhile, he's sitting on death row. He's married. He gets married in 1998 to a girlfriend at the time of the murders was 16 years old, and she's claiming, oh, he was at my house that night. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but I listened to an interview of his initial interview when the cop went down to Miami-Dade to talk to him, and he said, I was with a girl named Tasha. Well, it turned out her name was Tanya. He got her pregnant at 16. She had an abortion. They were pissed off at each other because he didn't want her to have an abortion, so they broke up. But this was the night of their reconciliation. That's why it sticks in her mind. Anyway, in 1998, she marries him. And they stay married for, to this day, as far as I know, they're still married. And she still goes into the court and says, nope, he was with me. He was with me. Her sister goes into the court and says, yeah, I saw him. He was with her. Until overnight, until the next afternoon. He was with her. Okay. So, Pablo's got an alibi. It wasn't me. So, second trial, the Supreme Court agreed you had ineffective assistance of counsel. His lawyer, who passed away a couple of years before the Supreme Court came down with their decision, Florida Supreme Court, that is, his lawyer was very, very ill at the time of that trial. And they said, we agree. They had testimony from an attorney, a law expert that said that the decisions that this lawyer made during the trial were not ones that any attorney should make, and that he just didn't handle it correctly. He didn't hire a facial recognition expert, which Seth's attorney had hired a facial recognition expert who told the jury, listen, this guy, it's not Seth in this video. This is not Seth. I've examined it. I've done the measurements and everything. It's not him. Nobody hired anybody on Pablo's behalf. So meanwhile, I told you Pablo's really famous over in Spain. Spain is against the death penalty, anti-death penalty. So now they're, having flash mobs in the street, and they're raising tons of money, millions of dollars, for Pablo Ibar's defense. Free Pablo Ibar, which is why Netflix had a show about these murders that was shown in Spain. That's in Spanish. That was called the Miramar Murders. It has not been shown in the U.S. In any case, so that 98 trial, the second trial, is not overturned until 2016. That's when the Florida Supreme Court said, okay, you had ineffective assistance of counsel, you can have a new trial. So in 2019, he's up for trial again. This is trial number, oh God, I've lost count. Let's see. The first one was both guys, Seth, Ibar. This is the fifth trial. Fifth trial. And it was full of drama. Full of drama. They pick a jury the first day of the trial. Someone points out that there's a juror sleeping. So they admonish this guy, they replace him with someone else, and that goes away. Second day of the trial, this man walks in and sits in the pews across from the family members of, the victims of the murders. And all of a sudden, the bailiff that's sitting in the back of the court jumps up and says, hey, you can't be here, in front of the jury. He's like, and there's whole commotion. That guy was Seth Penalver. Seth wanted to come. He's like, hey, I was found not guilty. I want to see what's going on. I want to watch. And so the judge dismisses the jury, brings him up, and he says, look, you can't be here. They had invoked the rule, the sequestration rule, which means no witnesses can be in the courtroom until after they're done with their testimony. And he's like, I'm not a witness. And he's like, yeah, you're on the defense's and prosecution's witness list. And he goes, well, I just want to make a record that, I was found not guilty, and I have every right to be here. And they have no intention of calling me as a witness. It's just a ploy to keep me out of the courtroom. And so the judge says, okay, you've made your record. Now you need to leave. So we had to leave. This is the circus that was this second trial for Pablo Ibar. But here's what they had in the second trial that they didn't have in all the other trials. if you watched part 1, I talk about a blue shirt that a person in the video had that was covering his face, and he took off this shirt and he throws it right outside the front door. They pick up that shirt. It has a construction company name on it. They find out that that construction company had gifted those shirts to this lighting company that Pablo Ibar's mother worked at as sort of a, you know, a campaign to get business. So that's how they tie this shirt to Pablo Ibar back originally. Now, originally, when this was tried in 1996 and 1998 and 1990, you know, DNA was in its infancy. Like, you would need DNA, this, you know, you'd have to have some kind of bodily fluid, blood, semen, you know, whatever, saliva, that the stain would have to be like the size of a quarter, at least, for them to get any DNA. As the years go by, now we're fast forwarded, we're in 2019, they take that same shirt and now they're able to test it for what they call touch DNA. So all they need is skin cells, like something you can't even see without a microscope. So they test this t-shirt. So the defense, of course, is it, you know, it does come back and it identifies it that it is likely that Pablo Ibar wore this shirt, that it is his DNA. Like, the chances are billions and billions to 1 that it's him or something like that. In any case, the defense argues, well, that shirt could have been contaminated. That shirt is 25 years old. You know, someone could have touched Pablo, touched his shoe, you know, and then touched the shirt. We don't know. So they put that into the minds of the jury that, you know, that could be contaminated. So the jury goes on and on and on, and they hear the rest of the case, and they deliberate, and they come back on a Friday night, and they said they were sequestered. They come back on Friday night, and they're like, you know, we can't reach a decision. Can we just go back to the hotel and start again in the morning? So when they came back on Saturday morning, they had a decision very quickly. And what they think was they had reached a decision Friday night, but they just wanted to kind of like sleep on it. So they reached the decision. They came back and found him guilty on all charges. So Pablo Ibar is still in jail for the murders of Butch Casey, Marie Rogers, and Sharon, and I can never remember her last name, Anderson, I think it was Anderson. Super, super sad, but such a mystery in this case. So is he appealing? Is there an appellate thing still going on? I'm going to research. It's just very difficult to research this case because it's so old, but I'm going to see where it stands now. Is there an appeal? Is he still married to Tanya after that was 2019. So 3 years, 4 more years later, you know, where is this case? Crazy, isn't it? So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Somebody said I don't dance much anymore. I'll make a dancing dragonfly. There we go. Ooh, 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 ooh. Hey, I got my calendar. Want to know what it says today? Do you guys remember Fran Drescher from The Nanny? Yeah, we're going to talk about her. Fran Drescher. Did I pull off 2? I did. Doggone it. Okay. Yeah, but it's also about Fran Drescher. Okay, let's take a look. So she was best known for playing that high-pitched lady on The Nanny, you know, with that annoying laugh. You know, that, oh, I can't do it, but it was really annoying. Fran Drescher is best known for her role as the nasal, outgoing, and fashionable Fran Fine in The Nanny, the television show she wrote and produced with her then-husband, Peter Mark Jacobson. But nearly a decade before the series premiered in 1993, Drescher and Jacobson were the victims of a brutal crime while living in Los Angeles. In January of 1985, 2 armed men broke into the couple's apartment While one ransacked the house and began loading their belongings into the car, the other tied up Jacobson and raped Drescher and a friend who had joined the couple for dinner. Drescher's photographic memory and the artist sketch made from her description of her attacker led to his arrest. He was out on parole at the time of the crime, which he committed along with his brother. He received a life sentence. Drescher has expressed her gratitude at receiving closure, which a lot of women sadly do not have. Drescher later survived uterine cancer and has written 2 books about her traumatic experiences and her triumphs. Who knew that? Oh my goodness. She has a photographic memory. And this was a quote that she made in her 2002 memoir. The name of the memoir was Cancer Schmancer. And she said, "My whole life has been about changing negatives into positives." Yeah. All right, guys. That's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please don't forget to leave me a comment. Let me know you stopped by, that you watched. Let me know what's going on in your life, because I read every comment. Yeah. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily. I'll have more Idaho student murder updates.